On behalf of Fed Insider and Carasoft, we would like to welcome you to our mini-series, Headlines in Cybersecurity, which aims to translate the year's hot-button cybersecurity news stories into actionable steps state and local governments can take to protect themselves from attacks and recover when disaster strikes. Today's podcast, brought to you by VMware, is focused around blockchain security. Journalist John Breeden will moderate as Gerald Carnen III, CIO for the Office of Inspector General for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Felicia Stacchetti, Senior Cybersecurity Engineer at the Center for Internet Security, Michael Watson, CISO for the Commonwealth of Virginia, and Karen Wurstel, Senior Cybersecurity Strategist at VMware, discuss why users continue to fall for phishing schemes, how to protect government or employee data to prevent phishing, and strategies to keep users from taking the bait.
And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm John Breeden, and I will be moderating what I know will be an interesting and lively discussion about phishing. And no, I don't mean the fun kind of phishing that some of us will hopefully be doing this weekend, but instead phishing with a giant PH, which is the technique where an attacker uses social engineering through email or other communications channels to trick users into performing some action, often with the goal of compromising security. But have no fear, because we have four of the leading experts in this field to break it all down for us. They'll explain how phishing works, as well as some of the good tactics and techniques that government agencies can use to stop it. So let me introduce them, and then we can get started. First, I want to extend a warm welcome to Gerald Carnen. He is the Chief Information Officer for the Health and Human Services Office of the Inspector General. Gerald, it's an honor to have you with us today to talk about this really important topic.
Great. Thanks for having me.
And let me also welcome Felicia Stacchetti. She is the Senior Cybersecurity Engineer with the Center for Internet Security Controls. Felicia, it's an honor to have you with us on the show today.
Thanks, John, and hello, everyone.
And I also want to welcome Mike Watson, the Chief Information Security Officer with the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mike, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today about phishing.
Oh, happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
And we are also joined today by Karen Wurstel. She is the Senior Cybersecurity Strategist and Howler for VMware. We appreciate having such an experienced expert on the show today, Karen. Welcome.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
So thank you all for being here. I want to dive into this topic of phishing, but you all have such impressive backgrounds and credentials. I thought we should first take a moment to let the audience learn a little bit more about you and to get a better idea of your duties and responsibilities and also your experience in this area. So, Gerald, let me start with you. Thanks again for being here. I know you're a frequent guest on these Fed Insider webinars, and we really appreciate having you back. For those who may not know you quite as well as I do, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your role as the Chief Information Officer for the Health and Human Services Office of the Inspector General.
Certainly. Let me put away my tackle box and rod here. I forgot, since you clarified which phishing this was, I thought I was getting ready for the other one. Yeah, so my name is Gerald Carnen. I am the Chief Information Officer and Assistant Inspector General for Information Technology at the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Inspector General. Been there since May when I officially became the CIO. I have 20 years of experience before that at the Department of State, where I acquired my senior executive service. I was Director for Enterprise Network Management in the Bureau of Information Resource Management there, where I was director and basically I was the infrastructure person. So I have been in operations pretty much most of my career in IT, but I was very much involved in cybersecurity. And when I was at the Department of State, I was usually the eviction and remediation person for the department if there were any events that occurred. And from there, I came over to HHS OIG, happy to be here and doing a lot of implementation and security improvements around Zero Trust.
Excellent. Thank you, Gerald. Appreciate your background. And Felicia, you are also a returning guest. It's always great when we have an expert of your caliber join us for these technical discussions. So can you introduce yourself to our audience by telling us a little bit about your background and also what you do now as the Senior Cybersecurity Engineer with the Center for Internet Security Controls?
Sure. So I've been with the controls team for a little over a year now. Originally, I started working out on our editorial panel on the development of version 8 of the CIS critical security controls. Most recently, I've been working on our community defense model. That's where we take data from sources like the Verizon DBIR and our own MSISAC data. We drive it into models like the MITRE attack framework and then translate it into action to create and prioritize those controls. And previously, I also worked as the Computer Emergency Response Team Manager for the MSISAC, serving SLTTs.
Excellent. Wow. Very technical background. Thank you for explaining all that to us. I can't wait to talk to you about phishing today. And joining us from Virginia is another longtime favorite guest here at Fed Insider, Mike Watson, the Chief Information Security Officer for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Mike, we are happy that you could join us today to help your state and local government colleagues come to grips with the challenge of phishing. Can you tell us a little bit about your background in technology and some of the things that you do now as the CISO with Virginia?
Sure thing. And it's, every time I talk about how long, I feel like I don't realize quite how long it's been that I've been in the field. I was working in general technology for, about 25 years total. And then, of course, 15 of that has been cybersecurity. And I've been in Virginia since 2006 or so. So I guess about 15 years at this point. I actually moved to Virginia because they were one of the public sector entities kind of putting a focus on cyber. And it was kind of a great, a new thing at the time. It was one of those things that wasn't quite everywhere yet. I was able to kind of grow my my cyber chops in Virginia, and just as a general note, we work real closely with our friends at Center for Internet Security, MSISAC. Lots of great stuff that comes out of there, and of course, I've been at the CISO at Virginia for about 10 years at this point. I enjoy being here. It's one of those things where every day there's something kind of new, coming out, and we see new creative hacks and lots of new and interesting situations. COVID was, one example of the crazy stuff that kind of comes up that you got to, figure out how to deal with and roll with. We do a lot of focus on our risk management and threat management and governance in my group, and trying to figure out, creative ways to stop some of the types of attacks such as phishing that we see every day. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate that. Karen, we are happy to have the Senior Cybersecurity Strategist and Howler for VMware with us today. In addition to that, I know you're also very well known as an industry luminary who speaks at many different events. For our audience who may not be completely familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about your background in technology? And I have to ask you about being a howler, what that is as well.
Sure. I got started quite a while ago, and it really actually started by accident in the 1980s when my grad school professor at the computer science department encrypted our final exam. The only way to pass the exam was if we had written the code-breaking tools that were assigned as homework all throughout the semester. And so
Wow.
I was completely hooked on cybersecurity from that point forward. And I was professionally hired out of grad school into the Boeing company, where I did work for them on their classified projects for cybersecurity, and then went on to develop their first ever computer security policy manual. And I worked on their behalf through research and engineering on the standards developing in the early days of cybersecurity. I guess we call it information security standards then, through NIST and IEEE and other organizations. And that eventually led me to a consulting role at Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, served many, many, many large companies and federal agencies along the way, and then moved from there into operational roles and had the very distinct opportunity and privilege of being a CISO for multiple iconic brands like Microsoft, AT&T Wireless, and Russell Investments. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And the Howler team is, the team that stands up to represent security strategy externally facing and to help all of our customers in the industry on behalf of VMware.